She mocked my career over dinner with my parents, saying, "He's just my comfort zone, nothing more." I stayed silent that night, but walked away for good. Years later, karma humbled her so deeply that she came back apologizing, and what happened next left me speechless. My name is Aaron, and I'm 31. It was a quiet Friday night, around 8:12 in the evening, when my parents' kitchen filled with the warm scent of garlic bread and the sharp sweetness of orange soda. The table was small, set neatly with my mother's best plates, the ones she only used when she wanted things to feel special. The lasagna sat in the center, still steaming, and the three of us wore polite smiles that felt a little too stretched, a little too fragile. My mom looked proud, my dad looked curious, and I felt a strange tightness in my chest that I couldn't quite explain. Madison, my girlfriend, sat across from me. She had spent the entire day getting ready for this dinner. Her hair glossy, her nails painted perfectly, her makeup flawless. She looked stunning, the kind of beautiful that turns heads in a room, but there was always something behind her smile. A calculation, a distance. I remember noticing the way she looked at my parents, like she was quietly measuring them, trying to see where she fit in this picture. My father was halfway through his first bite of lasagna when he smiled and asked a simple, harmless question. "So, how did you two meet?" He said it lightly, his voice warm, expecting some cute story or a sweet memory. Madison rolled her eyes slightly, then gave a small laugh before answering. She rested her elbows on the table, tapping her manicured nails against the rim of her glass. Then she said it, plain, effortless, as if she'd rehearsed it. "He's sweet," she said casually. "But honestly, I'm with him for comfort, money, gifts, that kind of life." The words hit like a cold splash of water. The room fell into silence, so sharp you could hear the clock in the hall ticking. My father's fork froze mid-air. My mother's hand flew to her mouth in shock. And I felt something inside me collapse and go quiet all at once. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was betrayal served on my parents' dinner table. I tried to keep my composure, because losing my temper in front of my parents was something I had never done. But this was beyond awkward. This was cruel. I stared at her, trying to process what I had just heard. "Wait," I said, my voice low, steady, but cold. "What do you mean by that?" She laughed, a sharp, almost careless laugh. "Don't be naive," she said, tilting her head. "You know why I'm here. You give me the kind of life I like. Why pretend it's anything else?" My mother's eyes shone with embarrassed tears. My father set his fork down slowly, the way a man does when he's trying hard not to speak out of turn. I looked between them and Madison, feeling like I'd been stripped bare in my own home. And then my mind began to replay every moment of our relationship. The nights I drove across town to pick up her broken phone. The times I stayed awake to make sure she was okay when she was sick. The moments I stayed silent just to let her vent. Every kindness suddenly felt like a joke. Every memory now tainted by her words. "Madison," my mother said softly, "that's not a nice thing to say about someone you care about." Madison shrugged like it didn't matter. "I'm just being honest," she said flatly. "He's good for the lifestyle. That's the truth." That was when I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor, cutting through the silence like a knife. My legs felt stiff, my chest heavy. Without a word, I walked out into the narrow hallway, the light casting long shadows along the walls. She followed me out, her heels clicking against the floor. Her arms crossed over her chest. She looked at me like I had done something wrong. "You embarrassed me in front of them," she said coldly. Couldn't believe it. "I embarrassed you?" I repeated, my voice barely contained. "You told them you used me." Her eyes rolled again. "You're overreacting," she snapped. The argument that followed was short but cutting, each sentence sharper than the last. "Maybe we want different things." "Fine. Fine." The words fell like doors slamming shut one after another. Then she turned and walked away. The sound of her heels echoed down the hall, fading into silence. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I didn't pick it up immediately. I just stood there, replaying the whole scene over and over in my head, her tapping nails, my mother's shocked face, my father's disappointed eyes. Everything I had believed in felt small and meaningless. When I finally checked the message, it read, "I can't fake this. I need what I want. No explanation. No apology." Just a line that felt like a period at the end of a long, ugly sentence. I slipped my phone into my pocket and sat back at the table. My mother came in quietly, her eyes soft. She removed the foil from the lasagna and set it in front of me again. She didn't say anything, just rested her hand briefly over mine. A wordless gesture that said, "You don't have to say a thing." That night, I realized something fundamental had broken. Not just between Madison and me, but inside me. And I knew the coming days would demand strength I didn't yet have. 2 weeks later, Madison packed her things and left. No drama, no goodbyes, just silence. A silk robe draped over the couch, a half-used candle beside the sink, and her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost of what once was. When I came home and saw the empty spaces where her belongings used to be, I just stood there. The apartment felt cold, too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort you. It condemns you. That night, I took a photo of the empty couch, sunlight cutting through the blinds, and posted it online without a caption. Friends reached out, some with sympathy, some with jokes about dodging a bullet. But I didn't feel sad or relieved, just empty. Madison, on the other hand, posted a picture that same evening. She was at brunch with a new guy, a mimosa in hand, designer bag in view, captioned "Fresh Starts." I saw it. I didn't react. Maybe I was just too tired to. 6 months passed. Madison was still floating around my social media feed, smiling beside a man with a red Mercedes, dining at rooftop restaurants I could never pronounce. She looked radiant, like she had everything she wanted. But in one of her videos, I noticed something small. When her phone lit up with a message, she quickly flipped it over. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it meant everything. Rumors started circulating. Someone said her new guy was controlling. Someone else said they argued a lot. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Because if life has taught me anything, it's that the truth always finds its way back. So I focused on myself. I cleaned my apartment, donated her leftover things, fixed the broken lamp I'd been ignoring for months. My father once told me, "You learn more from silence than from shouting." And he was right. That dinner didn't just end my relationship. It exposed what it had always been built on. Lies, appearances, and empty promises. And as the months went on, I found something strange growing inside me, peace. Months rolled into a year, and life had settled into a new rhythm. I was sleeping better, smiling more, seeing my friends again. Madison had become a faded chapter, until one Saturday morning, my phone buzzed. Her name appeared on the screen. Madison. For a few seconds, I just stared at it. Then I opened the message. "Hey Aaron. I know this is weird, but can we talk? Please?" I should have ignored it. But curiosity, the kind that makes you touch a healing scar, made me reply. "Sure. Coffee sometime." We met at the same cafe where we'd had our first date 2 years ago. The lights were still dim, the plants still hanging low, and the same soft jazz played in the background. But everything else had changed. She walked in looking different, not glamorous, just real. Her hair tied up, dark circles beneath her eyes, her smile forced but faintly hopeful. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey," I replied. We Saturday. Ordered coffee. Hers was still a caramel latte. Mine just black. After a long pause, she spoke. "I've been thinking about that dinner," she said. "About what I said." She looked down. "I was stupid. I hurt you. I hurt your parents. And I didn't even realize how cruel I was until..." "Until what?" I asked calmly. She inhaled deeply. "Until it happened to me." Her voice trembled as she continued. "The guy I was with, Adam, he treated me like a trophy. Fancy dinners, trips, designer gifts, but everything had a price. He'd joke about me in front of his friends, say I was lucky to have him, that I'd never survive without him. And one day, when he laughed about me at a party, I saw my reflection in him. I realized I had done the same to you. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. She swallowed hard. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Out loud. I nodded slowly. I already forgave you. Not for you, but for me. Tears filled her eyes. You always were the better one between us. I smiled lightly. No. I just learned the hard way what respect really means. We sat there for a while. She told me she was thinking of moving back home, starting fresh. For the first time, her words sounded genuine. When we finally stood to leave, she whispered, "Your dad's look that night still haunts me." I replied quietly, "He doesn't hold grudges, but he remembers." She nodded, eyes down. "Guess I deserve that." And then she walked away. This time, peacefully. That evening, I had dinner with my parents. My dad looked at me over his newspaper and said, "You look lighter." I smiled. "Yeah, I finally let go." He nodded. Karma has a way of teaching lessons better than we ever could. And he was right. Madison's pain wasn't my revenge. It was karma's way of balancing the scales. Years passed. I built my own creative agency, found success, and peace became my new normal. Then, out of nowhere, Madison reached out again. This time, she was married to a teacher. Not rich, not flashy, but kind. She thanked me, not for love, for grace. She said, "You were right that night. I didn't value what I had. But life showed me what real value looks like." We talked for an hour, and when we said goodbye, she hugged me gently. "Thank you for being part of my growth," she whispered. As she walked away, I realized that life had come full circle. Sometimes karma doesn't come to destroy someone. It comes to transform them. Madison's story ended with humility. Mine with peace. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't always look like payback. Sometimes it looks like finally feeling free. Like and subscribe for more stories of love, loss, and the quiet power of karma.